I was about 12 or 13 years old. One evening I'm walking to my psychiatrist for my weekly appointment. It's a half-hour walk and after dark. I enjoyed walking, especially after dark when things were quiet, peaceful, and slow and no one else around. No, I didn't live in a dangerous neighborhood, nor did my walk take me through any dangerous neighborhoods. As I'm about halfway to my destination, a Cadillac, comes driving down the street. Some people, both male and female, in the car are sticking themselves halfway out the windows and are taunting me and jeering me as they drive by. A bunch of people in their late teens or early 20s, the driver alone had to be at least 18 years old. I ignore them and keep on walking. About a minute or two later, the same car comes down the street again, and those people are jeering me and taunting me again. I don't know who they are. Maybe they live in the neighborhood. I still ignore them and keep walking. Another minute or so goes by and again they come driving down the street, taunting and jeering me. Now I'm worried. They're circling the block over and over, deliberately focusing on me. As soon as they reach the corner and make their turn and are out of sight, I duck behind some bushes in someone's front yard and wait. The car comes again down the street. This time, not seeing me walking down the street, they're not jeering. They pass right by me in my hiding place and turn the corner. I think they think I've finally reached my destination, one of the houses on the block, and went inside and as a result, drove away. I thought wrong. Stupidly, I leave my hiding place and go back to walking on my way to my psychiatrist. I should have stayed there behind those bushes much longer because I hear the car approaching. They spot me and start taunting and jeering me again. They turn the corner. This time I run towards my destination, but I know I won't get far before the car and those kids catch up with me again. So to that effect I decided to hide again behind the bushes in front of an apartment building. This time resolving to stay there for good until the jerks in the car gives up their searching for me. I'm hiding there behind the bushes for not long. Maybe about 30 seconds or so when the guy whose apartment it is pops out from his apartment, asking what I'm doing hiding in his bushes. At first he probably thinks I'm a burglar or a guy using his bushes as a toilet. But whatever he thinks, I explain to him how I'm walking to my psychiatrist and how I'm being followed and harassed by a bunch of kids in a car, which was why I'm hiding in his bushes. The guy can instantly tell from the tone of my voice and my facial expressions that I'm telling him the truth. He can see how scared I am. Just then the car comes down the street and pulls right up at the curb directly in front of us. They look at me and the guy I'm with. Not a mean-looking guy, in his late 30s, early 40s, but tough and serious looking enough. He's not wearing a shirt. But he's wearing a sleeveless undershirt which reveals that this guy's upper body is very well toned, slightly muscular, and no fat. I'm looking at the car and I realize that the car doesn't look so full now. It's missing a few people inside. The guy I'm with just gives them a mean stare. He asks me, "You know them?" I reply that no, I don't know them at all. I haven't the slightest idea of who they are. Just then, as the car is sitting there, about 3 of them approach walking from the other direction. The car was traveling from east to west. Those 3 were walking on foot from west to east. So that's why the car seemed not so full. They were looking to escalate the situation. They weren't satisfied with just driving by and taunting me, so they changed tactics. A few of them got out of the car up ahead and started walking towards me while the ones in the car took another turn around the block. Their plan now was to physically trap me in between themselves and their car. Perhaps grab me and drag me into the car with them for whatever reasons. Most likely just for kicks. But seeing my tough guy guardian angel with me, the kids walking towards the car instead got into the car and it took off. The guy offered to stay with me for a little longer or if I wanted to duck into his apartment to stay there until I was sure that it was safe to continue on my journey. I had a feeling that this was the last I was going to see of those guys and their car and I didn't want to be late for my appointment. So I thanked the guy for his offer, but declined. And decided to head on my way. The guy went back into his apartment and closed the door. I looked at the closed door and hoped that I didn't make a mistake by turning down the guy's offer of better safety, because I was still scared. Thankfully, I was right about not seeing the car again. The rest of my walk I was unmolested. I reached my psychiatrist's office. I told my therapist about what happened. He insisted on calling the police. The police came and took a report from me. That's the last I heard of it. On my way back home, I usually took the same route that I came from, up the same streets. But this evening, I varied my way home, taking some different side streets to walk on. Never saw that car or those jerks again. I was getting some groceries on my way back from work, and suddenly I feel this sharp tearing pain in my torso towards my back. Starts off small and just keeps getting exponentially worse to a point where it's easily the most painful thing I've ever experienced by light years. I was in disbelief that pain could reach those heights. This induced some panic and my breathing increased, but with every breath and expansion of my lungs the pain spiked higher. At the time I of course didn't know what it was and thought for sure, if I'm feeling this kind of pain then something is going majorly wrong inside me and I'm in trouble. I'm rushed to the hospital in the ambulance, morphined up and heavily sedated to calm me and my breathing. Turns out my aorta had several aneurysms and one was slowly, thank God only slowly or I'd be dead in 2 minutes, tearing bit by bit, layer by layer. This also explains why breathing was so painful, because the expansion on my lungs indirectly pushed on my aorta, further worsening the tears. At the hospital now that evening, after some scans, the surgeon said to my family and I that they cannot operate now because risk of a full tear while they go in is too high. They will have to put me in a coma for a while and hope the aorta strengthens in a week or two, allowing them to operate. And when we asked the surgeon if I'm in any danger until then, his words were, "Unfortunately, anything can happen, and the best thing we can do is just wait. You will either make it, or you won't." Writing to you now, I of course made it till surgery day, and I was woken up to be briefed plus signed some paperwork before I went in. They explained to me that aside from the open heart part of the surgery, they will have to cut some connections to my brain and drain it of the cerebrospinal fluid to try reduce the risks of paraplegia and death. Yay! Needless to say, I of course made it out after a 14-hour surgery. All went well, but I had to learn to breathe on my own again, move, sit, walk, etc. Then lastly, the icing on the cake for this whole experience is that I was admitted at the end of February 2020, so my recovery in the hospital was during the time where everyone was all panicking about COVID, so I couldn't have visitors, which I promise you takes a massive mental toll, and docs told me I need to be exceptionally careful because of my frail state. Getting COVID would probably be a death sentence. For some background first, I'm a 29-year-old woman. I live in an apartment in a sketchier side of my town, so I'm not unaccustomed to strange people pulling up and strange things happening. I've been through a home break-in, so I'm very hyper-vigilant when it comes to keeping myself and my home safe. I also smoke cigarettes, nasty habit I know, but having cats and not wanting my house to reek like smoke, I'll walk out to my balcony to smoke. That's exactly what I was doing when this happened. I was sitting on my balcony, smoking and just enjoying my night, when I notice a car I've never seen before pull into the back parking lot of my apartment right by my balcony. I initially felt a bit off, but I didn't want to come off as being the paranoid neighbor, so I keep sitting and smoking my cigarette. Then I hear footsteps making a beeline through my backyard. There's a large and burly man that I've never seen before walking briskly through my backyard. Again, I still don't try to make much of it because they might be there for my neighbor. My anxiety is definitely on alert but not in panic mode. Until I realize he's going straight for my portion of the backyard. He then does something that is still freaking me out as I type this. He stops right in my backyard and looks up at me on my balcony, not saying a word. Now I'm in absolute panic mode. I audibly say, "Oh fuck no." Spring up, slam and lock my balcony door, run to my upstairs bathroom, and dial 911. I listened to every sound from downstairs while I stood panicking in my bathroom, and truthfully it sounded like someone was messing with my back door. I don't know for sure because I was in hypervigilance. I do know he was in my backyard for a few minutes because I was in my bathroom for several minutes until I decided to peek out my balcony window. I saw him walking to his car and getting in. That also tells me that I don't think he was here to rob me, but something more sinister. Luckily he was lazy because again, I live on the cheaper side of town, so you can imagine the quality of my doors and locks. I was doing inventory in a forest in a mountain in the middle of France. It was in a natural reserve, and I had to go outside the trail. I would go for the whole day, and not see a human soul. I encountered a chamois. It makes the same noise as a goat, for those who are wondering, some escapee dogs, a falcon who tried to gouge my eyes because I was too close of its nest, I think, I didn't linger to find out, and some foxes. And one day, I had to go across a very steep creek bank. It had rained a lot some days prior, but the creek was calm and shallow. Then, as I was halfway the bank on the other side, I heard a very loud crack, then a rushing sound. I climbed the rest of the bank so fast I still don't know how I did it, and as I got at the highest point, I turned around. The creek was a mess of debris and rushing waters. It lasted maybe 15 minutes, then the creek was again shallow enough to see the rocks on the bottom. When I came back to the reserve house near the parking, the ranger there told me that a natural barrage had cracked on the main creek, and the resulting flood had broke one of the bridge and nearly killed a visitor. I told him what happened to me, and he then updated his report to nearly 2 casualties. That's when it really settled that I almost died in the middle of nowhere.